Good morning, Sharon. I'm so glad to see you. Welcome to the Nurse Leader Debrief.
Hi, Amy. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, I'm honored to have you. Thank you for volunteering. I was excited to have the opportunity to have you on. I know our listeners will learn so much from you. So, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on yourself, bringing you up to where you are now in terms of life and your position in your nursing career?
Sure. Great. Thanks. Well, I've been in nursing leadership for a very long time. I don't even want to say how many years. I'm pretty old, but I just love nursing. I knew from the time I was in high school that I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to understand how can you tell from a lab result what somebody has and just that compassionate side. And I'm a people person, so I always knew that I wanted to be a nurse. And I think that I'm very lucky in that. I feel bad for the kids who struggle and don't know what they want to do. I think that's harder. So I feel very lucky for that. But been in leadership a long time. I'm currently the Associate Chief Nursing Officer at Shirley Ryan AbilityLab. It's a specialty acute rehab hospital. So we have pretty sick patients who come here for rehabilitation and going on the 5-time Magnet journey. So it's a great place to work. But lots of leadership experience before then.
Fantastic. I'm not sure enough people, in my opinion, know about the specialty services like what Shirley Ryan AbilityLab provides. One of the things that I have often just admired so much is the relational aspects of care provided in that organization at all levels, as well as the interdisciplinary care that is provided that oftentimes, at least from my experience, we struggle with in the non-specialty acute care settings. What do you think that is? What's the secret sauce there?
I have to say it's a really great culture. From the start of this organization, it's just been collaborative. It's the prong between the physical medicine doctor, the physical therapist, and nursing, and it's all collaborative care. But also we do a lot of research, tons and tons of research. So I think having those interdisciplinary teams really builds relationships. And, from that, we have really great outcomes. It's really impressive to work here. It's funny, when I came here to interview, I thought, this is a small hospital. I'm coming from this big academic medical center and, all these units. But then when I toured and I saw the relationships between staff and then the relationships with patients, as well as really engaged nurses who are very involved in their professional governance, and they're just happy and smiling, I really had to consider this for an opportunity, and I'm so glad I did.
I think we're all really glad that you did. Most importantly, likely the leaders and the staff and the patients there. And congratulations on your success in the Magnet realm as well. That's really something to be honored and well-deserved from the experiences that I've had with that organization and its leadership. So thank you for your service to that vulnerable population. And I just love how the patients are genuinely a part of the care plan. I mean, you don't even have to say we do patient-centered care because you couldn't do it any other way.
Absolutely. And some of the stories are amazing. I mean, you can go on YouTube and see some of the stories, and you can't help but cry because the things they're able to accomplish for the patients here are amazing. I also think it helps leaders like Laura Ferrio. She was the chief nurse here for 20 years. Now she's the chief operating officer here. So I think that having that continuous nursing thread in our work helps with our patient outcomes as well. But it's really an incredible place. A lot of high profile patients come here. So that's a whole nother area that we kind of specialize in that other organizations don't. And there's a whole SWAT team to deal with our high profile patients. So that was an interesting learning for me. I haven't experienced that before, but I can go on and on about the great stories here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and some then might also think, sometimes I think when you're not in one of these, an organization such as this, you just kind of assume, oh, the leaders did all of their development early and here they are. And now they're sitting kind of stagnant, if you will, in the executive position. So would you talk to me a little bit about, I know you've had a ton of experiences and a passion for your own professional development as well as those around you. What types of experiences have you carved out for yourself to help you be the leader you are today?
Well, I do blame it on being the oldest of three girls. I've always kind of been the boss, so it's probably started there. But I think very early on, I was exposed to the Student Nurses Association in college, and just being involved in that really helped me learn the importance of networking and being involved in your profession. It really started in school, and from there, on a lower level, even like things like the policy committee when I was a nurse, an early nurse leader, boring, right? Who wants to write policies? But you really learned, that really helped me when we were doing a position paper or something else later on. I mean, those were foundational blocks. And then always being involved in professional nursing organizations has really been my passion. And I truly attribute my success to being involved in professional associations, professional nursing associations.
Yeah.
When I was getting my master's degree, I was a director of nursing at a community hospital, and I wanted to do my project on healthcare policy. So they put me with the Illinois Nurses Association to learn public policy and healthcare policy. And from there, when I left, they actually offered me a job. So I was able to be the director of nursing professional practice. And really, that's where I learned about the whole Nurse Practice Act. I had to learn it inside and out, spoke to nurses across the state about topics that were important to them. And then just like funneling questions and calls like, does the Nurse Practice Act say I can hang blood? And it's and it's a lot of education about, well, it's not that specific, but and just those foundational experiences with INA and then ANA at the national level really just helped realize how important being involved in your profession is, because I could see it at that higher level now. So from there, I actually went to be the executive director of the Illinois Organization of Nurse Leaders, which is the affiliate of AONL. So I loved that role. I was there for 4 years. I met leaders across the state, did a lot of great things like the usual increasing membership, offering educational programs, which are still going to this day. So really, that really helped me. Not to mention, I met future bosses through AONL, through my involvement in those associations. You network with people you'd never be exposed to otherwise.
Right.
And then like learning from them. So it's a great network of, if you need something, if you're dealing with a challenging situation, you can reach out to this network of people, that if you just stayed inside the walls of your company, you wouldn't have access to those resources and how to provide better care and do cool things for nursing.
That's an awesome experience. I love to hear that. And you're right. The networking that comes out of it is so important. I want to go back for 1 second to the Practice Act. That hits on something for me as well. I am stunned sometimes at the lack of knowledge that nurses have. I've lived in 9 states across the country. The lack of knowledge that people have about what exactly is in our Practice Act, so we'll get all of those. You're right. I've heard those comments as well. I can't do that. It's not in my license or
my license is in jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have like an elevator speech or something that you give to folks to kind of break down the essence of what the Practice Act is? I don't mean specifically for Illinois. I just mean in general. What is it and how can we use it?
Yeah. And really, the Practice Act was created to keep the public safe.
Right.
That was the foundation of it. But also, even if we take it back to, our guiding principles from ANA, I think a lot of people don't remember that. We just did that for our Nurses Day week. We did the Scopes and Standards little bookmark to all of our nurses, because I think we forget that this is the foundation to our career, to our profession, just like the Nurse Practice Act. So I think sometimes we learn it in school and it's boring, and I just want to learn how to start an IV, and we forget about the importance of these of these things. But really for the Nurse Practice Act, it's to protect the public. And we have a say in our Practice Act every 7 years in Illinois. It sunsets, and nurses are invited to the table to make changes so that our Practice Act is current with what we're actually doing. Yeah. And really, I would just say it's the legal requirements to make sure that you're practicing safely to our public. And it starts there, and then it gets way more specific from there.
Sure. Thank you for that. Because I've always struggled with how do you just make it so simple that people know and want to read it. They can be daunting documents.
For sure.
But I think I would encourage every nurse and every nurse leader to be familiar with the Practice Act in their state on some level, or just at least actively engage with the board or the organizations like you were mentioning in order to fully understand what it is that we're looking at. Thank you for that little sidebar.
I'm sure there's much more eloquent things out there, but that's kind of my go-to is public safety.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important. And I think if you have at least an awareness of, and on your bookshelf, a Practice Act for your state, the Code of Ethics, the scopes and standards for both nurses and nurse leaders, AONL competencies, if you're in a leadership role, and the social policy statement. Those are my go-to documents to help us understand what is it that we're supposed to be doing. And from there, we're able to continue to develop our professional practice and our own development.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
What other experiences in your development, how do you feel like have really been impactful and shaped you that our listeners might learn from or explore on their own as well? What would you recommend?
I would say to get involved, even if, whatever excites you. So, I was the nerd who liked healthcare policy. Getting involved maybe on a committee on, that would be something that you value. So really in a nursing organization, start just joining a committee and hearing about things and learning about things really helps broaden your knowledge, and it really helps broaden decision-making in the future. I would say to start there for sure in committee work, but then also things which is probably my recommendation to most people, is just raise your hand and get involved. I was lucky enough to provide testimony twice at the federal level and at the state level, and that was really an eye-opening experience. Most recently, I talked to a group of Illinois senators on a panel about they didn't realize there was a nursing shortage. So I had the luxury of being able to talk about it. And it's something I lived every day, right? Staffing is every day. So it was nice to go down and give actual testimony of what really happens day to day. So, you just grow from there. You start learning things. Before you know it, you're tapped on the shoulder, get involved, and it's really awesome, and it helps your leadership skills tremendously.
Absolutely. I just returned from the AONL's Advocacy Day in Washington. That was my first time attending, and it's a little daunting. And yet any person, regardless of role, there were managers, there were directors, executives, entrepreneurs. I mean, just about any faculty, academia. There were I think like 240 people there this year, and it can be daunting, but so worth it. And I found the conversations with the congressmen and women and their teams is to be really enlightening for me as well. And it actually kind of pushed me to know, how can I get more involved in my state too? So I can't believe you've testified at a federal level, though. That's amazing.
Yes, that was awesome. That was the to discuss the impact of reducing federal Medicaid spending and the impact it would have on healthcare. So that was an excellent, that was Jan Schakowsky, I believe I testified with and under. And it was really a great experience. And I got to bring what I knew, which is really rewarding. You feel like you close that circle of, oh, I know this. I know what will happen if we don't have Medicaid dollars for these patients. I know what that impact is going to be. So, and then you also learn just by the other people testifying too, their perspectives and what they're seeing. So maybe it's like another organization or another department within the state, and you can hear the impact. So it's really, I can't stress enough how broadening things you do really help you as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know you said you've been doing this a long time, and it seems like even from being the oldest of three, I'm the youngest of three, by the way. So that's interesting. Three
That
girls.
is
Well,
interesting.
I think we'll have to talk about further at another time. But I know it started there. But can you bring yourself back to a point of what was your real impetus? Like, what was your desire in starting to get involved? And what do you see in managers today where either that's present or not? And how do you help to encourage our people to get involved early in their leadership careers?
Yeah, I do have to say that I think I'm kind of lucky in that I don't know that it was a conscious decision to be a leader. I think it kind of fit my skill set and it just kind of happened. But the manager group is really my passion. I think they're the most, and we heard this at AONL too, right, at the conference, that they're the most at-risk group. I think that they, they're right in the middle, right, from upper and lower. They're sandwiched right in between. And I think they need a lot of support. And I have an IRB right now on some interventions I'm doing with managers. And hopefully I'll publish that when done. But, it's the whole thing. It's watching their span of control, watching their hours, that whole 24-hour accountability thing. And really, I think taking care of them. It's also interesting because, you could have a blend of generations in your manager group. And, what's important to one manager might not be important to another manager. So really learning and what those individual managers need and trying to help them best with that. And I think everyone's working on that in some manner.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of eyes on it, and I'm grateful for your work there as well. And I'm hopeful that our listenership is primarily those that are in manager, even administrative supervisor or supervisor type of roles, and that they are learning that there is a dedicated group of people like yourself, like me, like others that are really passionate about improving the work life and well-being of these leaders and helping them identify their space professionally. As you said, generations come into things often, and even with that and any other characteristic, it's really important that we're making individual plans with these patients, just like we do with patients, right?
Sure, right.
Our leaders, individualized care plan for what does this person need, want, and how will they be their best, and what resources can we help them achieve or get through that. I know you give back quite a bit.
I think that the organizations that meet the needs of their leaders will be more successful, because then those leaders will learn how to meet the needs of their staff. So and then it's going to be a really healthy organization.
I think so too, and I just love that is being so highlighted. Of course, the positional, not only the positional importance, but the just sheer need for nurse managers to be functioning at a high level is not new, and it seems a little bit like our pendulum is swinging to finally whatever it took for all of us to hear it. Those, even though, like I said, many have known for many years, really giving that attention that those, I call them courageous humans serving in the middle.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
True.
So I know you give back to the community as well, not through your service, but you teach a little bit also, right? You want to talk to us about that and how'd you get into that?
It was after I graduated with my master's degree, and some instructors kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, with your position, and you did okay in class, would you teach for us?" So I liked teaching in the graduate school very much, School of Nursing. And I did things like the business of healthcare and, strategic management and things like that. So and I have to be honest, you kind of have to know your weaknesses. The whole classroom setting kind of wasn't for me, the structured school. Not to say I wouldn't do it again, but I tend to not like a lot of red tape, I guess. So, but I've been able to funnel that into teaching for organizations. So I teach in the Illinois Organization of Nurse Leaders has a fellowship for nurse leaders. So I teach classes in there. I teach values-based leadership and professional planning of your career, and another one that I'm drawing a blank on. And then as well, I was so blessed to be able to teach for AONL in the Discovering the Leader Within series. And that was awesome. I love that class because, it tends to focus around leaders who don't necessarily have direct reports. And I think AONL felt, being an executive director, I had to have a whole group of volunteer people accomplish things. And how do you do that when I'm not their boss? They don't report to me. They're volunteering. So I think that skill set, helped me teach for Discovering the Leader Within.
Yeah, we get great feedback from that course as well. And what do you think it is that resonates with people? Not only that aspect of there's an opportunity for people not in kind of direct report manager relationships, as you mentioned, but the content is interesting, right? So what do you think it is that resonates with people about that content?
I think at the basic level, it's giving them permission. Yes, you're a leader. Ding, just coming out and saying, you are a leader, really. And every nurse is a leader. It's just different capacities. And I think having people recognize that is the initial thing that resonates for them. Like, oh, yeah, I am. I do have to, accomplish this project or complete this outcome. Like, yeah, I am leading this, even though I'm not a manager or a hierarchical type of leader.
Right. Yeah. And that developing the leader within is just something that is just the foundation for all of competencies in all of us as we grow too. That one has to be set a little bit like Maslow's, but we can always,
for sure,
always grow in that, no matter what our tenure is or our roles, right? So that's...
And I can't tell you how many times in every topic in that Discovering the Leader Within course, it all starts within. We're really trying to help them look inside and develop themselves internally first. Yeah. So, and that's so core.
Absolutely.
Reflective practice is so important. That's a great concept to share with them.
And I think on the surface, to our listeners, it can seem like I don't have time for that. And I think we're both here to tell you, you don't have time to not do that. That while it's not a task and it can be overwhelmed, the idea of, I need to work on how I communicate with people or what I know about myself in terms of how I interpret conversations or behaviors or what my behaviors might be from an emotional intelligence perspective. How do you read a room? How do you know what types of strategies to take to accomplish a certain goal? All of that is critically important, but requires reflection, self-reflection. That I don't know about you, but sometimes on my to-do list gets placed at the very, very bottom, or it used to. Until
we take care of everyone else first, right?
Exactly. But journaling or typing things out these days, audio recordings of your thoughts, some sort of diary of how you're learning from something. I think those self-reflective practices are just critical to our well-being and our success, actually.
Yeah. And, sometimes we think of it as, it's another thing to do, another task, but it doesn't have to be so formal, like reflective practice. But it doesn't have to be that formal. I have a long commute home. I spend most of my time thinking, did I handle that conversation right? But what should I have done better? What could I do better? And then ideas will pop into my head that when I'm doing that, where I didn't even plan it, I'm like, I could do this. So it's so important. I think in the busyness of life, reflective practice is very important. But also, really that professional development in terms of attending, fellowships or classes or whatever, even though it feels like one more thing to do, 90% of the time when you finish that course, you're like, this is what I needed. It's kind of like exercise, right? Like no one wants to do it, but then once you're done, you're like, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know I've had some experience with the fellowship types of programs, and it is just so rewarding. In fact, I did mine 16 years ago, and I'm gonna see a colleague from that experience just next
And you're
week.
still close?
Yeah, we stay in
Oh,
touch. We haven't seen each other in a really long time, but stay in touch, texting, social media, and whatnot. And so I'm going to be in Boston, and so she's going to come meet me. And those are just connections that you make for a lifetime as human beings, but also
and
uh, we've reached out to each other over the years for her and many others for just advice or tips, and run into each other at conferences and that type of thing. So you build lifelong relationships, and it sounds like you've done a lot of that as well. So, Sharon, what would you end with that you want to be sure that our listeners hear or understand as it relates to anything you really wish from a professional practice or just a leadership perspective? What words of wisdom do you have?
Well, I think I would have to say something as lame as just say yes. You know, when these things come up, just say yes. Just try it, even if you feel like you don't have time. Like when someone calls and says, "Oh, do you want to do a podcast?" Just never doing one before. Just say yes. Um, it's growth, and it's important, and it's for you. You know, that whole lean in type thing. You know, it's really rewarding. If you really want the professional development, professional growth. Unfortunately, it's not, 7 to 3:30 during business hours at your own organization. It's really expanding and being more global. So that would be my advice, is to say yes to anything that comes along your way to grow as a professional.
Yeah, say yes to growth opportunities. And I've heard you saying what I've learned, and our listeners can learn today too, is just stepping out, getting involved, and taking some chances on yourself, taking the important time to reflect on your own development, taking any opportunities there, and all of that helps you to be effective in your leadership role. And the world is kind of your oyster after that, right?
Yes,
The
sure.
connections you make, the work that you do, like you mentioned, can lead to career opportunities, and that one leads to the next, and whatever it is that you want to do.
And you learn from each other, even if not formally. You learn, when you build these relationships and you network, you learn from other individuals. Aside from my great mentors I've had in my roles as a nurse leader, I've had many mentors. I mean, just having those colleague friends, you learn.
Absolutely. And I know we've both been just so blessed by some might call it a network. We call them our friends and colleagues. And that just leads to so many things that are fulfilling for each of us individually. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on. And I know that our listeners will learn from you. And I look forward to the next time that we can connect. You have a great weekend.
You're very welcome. You too.